It's fall food plot time, and hunters like us are trying to figure out what to plant. What blends work best for which season? And what exactly is food plot architecture? We're about to find out. The Rakk Factor podcast is next. Welcome to the Rakk Factor podcast, where we discuss the factors that lead to bigger bucks and a healthier deer herd. The Rakk Factor podcast is presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. From premium deer mineral to deer feed, premium food plot seed to deer attractant, Rakk Fuel products maximize the health and potential of your deer herd year-round. Visit rackfuel.com and fuel your herd. All right, our guest today has been a player in the land management game for a number of years. He is a student of all things whitetail and a self-proclaimed plot head. Zach Haas joins us on the Rakk Factor podcast. Hey, what's up, Z?
Hey, not too much. Another night in paradise.
So when Tom and I talked about who to bring onto the podcast for our first few episodes, you were definitely at the top of our list. And for those that don't know you, give us the quick and dirty about your background, Zach.
Yeah, so, quick background. So I went to obviously school for biology, water resource management. So I used that to become a aquatic biologist. I work actually at a pond management company in the state of Wisconsin. And from there, I obviously, love the world of hunting. And I figured, the little niche I have is I look more of as a scientist when it comes to different aspects of hunting. So I figured, hey, why not mesh my biology degree and my passion of hunting, making them one. So back in 2014 now, I started Creek Bottom Land Management. Dabbled a little bit in the hunting show world for a little bit, but ultimately still doing both passions of the ponds and the plots.
So when did you realize that, food plots should be part of your hunting tool set, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it was so back in 2010, my dad and we figured, hey, what's this food plotting thing all about? So we took an acre of prairie, you could say, or old cropland, and figured, hey, let's plant something. Didn't know what we were doing at the time. Took, I think, 5 bags of something, threw it in there, and wow, deer are eating it. I mean, my biggest turnip might have been a golf ball at the time. Really impressive, but overall, as that morphed, they started diving more into different blends, different strategies, something I like to call food plot architecture, where I use different screening strategies. How can I now improve my land? How can I improve bedding ground? I started expanding, and got more involved than my wife wants me to be. But it's been my addiction now, and from there, I just love to see people shoot deer, find sheds, and have a good time. Bring their little ones out there, enjoy stuff with family. And as I started working on people's land, doing consults, and seeing those happy faces, seeing the success stories, and sometimes not so successful stories, it really made me passionate about it.
So when we're looking to add our food plot blends to Rakk Fuel, I talked to a couple of agronomists. Obviously, the company where we get our seed, we talked to them quite a bit, and a few land managers. But I spent more time, talking with Zach and emailing back and forth and going over ideas and what he thought. So I mean, Zach was definitely a big help with what we did, and really for any new plots and blends that we're going to work on. How do you think that went so far, Zach?
Good. I think we got a very good start, good base. I'm all about variety. When I started into food plots, there was you plant brassica, beans, corn. That was the world. And then so I think what we've done is we've created such a niche where people can grab, depending on what soil type they have, nutrients they have, area of the country they're in, and they can grab something that Rakk Fuel has, put it on their property, and be successful. So I think the base is loaded. Now we just need there's a couple of players that are being tested right now that are going to be the one to hit the home run. So we're definitely getting there.
Yeah, we're not going to say too much. I mean, there's a few other blends that we're working on. One that we're really pretty excited about, and that's going to be drought tolerant and and pretty successful in shaded areas. Steve, you were actually at one of those test plots this Sunday, right? And I mean, from pictures I saw, it looked really, really well.
I'm telling you, it looks like a carpet. You walk inside that timber, and it's a beautiful green. It's lush, and it just covers the entire forest floor, which is pretty cool because there really isn't a lot of sun that hits that forest bottom, at any given time during the day. But it's doing really well, and I think people are going to be pretty excited when we do get ready to launch that one.
And I don't think they've had hardly any rain there.
No.
At all. So
he told me that, he said after he planted that they went 28 days straight without rain. So some of the other plots are struggling, but that one in particular is doing really well.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's one thing really, cool and unique, especially like with the blends we've developed with you guys, is there's a little bit of everything in there. There's some species of plants that are drought tolerant. There's some that are wet tolerant. There's some that can take less nutrients. So in a way, there's an aspect of each blend that, this species might not take off, but this one's going to. So, there's some blends that are just too focused on, all right, these are the perfect ones that we hear about, but they don't focus on, now what if we go 28 days without rain? What if we get a torrential downpour for weeks on end? What's going to grow? And that's, kind of a big part of these blends as well.
Right. One of the other things too, when we were putting these blends together, and to me, this is one of the most important, because not just when you and I were talking, Zach, but when I talked to the seed company and I called them, the first thing they asked was, what are you going to use for your seed rates? Are you going to be like the rest of the companies out there that the rates are just low? They're doing that to keep, a smaller bag. They don't have to put as much in and keep their costs down. Even though the customer thinks that they're saving money, realistically, if you have to buy 2 bags or 2 jugs or 2 buckets of something to get what you should from one, are you really saving any money? And that was the first thing. And I told them, anything that we do, we're trying to make it, as good as we can. And we want the customers to be as successful as they can. We want big buck pictures from as many people as we can. And we're not going to try to, sneak one by. So I think that's a big part of it. Our seed rates are, if anything, they might be just a touch high on some, just to make sure that everyone's, seed rate is good. But it's not crazy. They're really close. We try to do it, from what you would recommended, Zach, and what the seed company recommended. We try to keep everything working really well there.
Can you explain that a little bit, Zach? What kind of that seed rate and what you found to be a kind of an ideal rate?
Yeah, so it all depends. So I probably nerded out too much when I got into this. So I have a big spreadsheet of different genus, species, you name it, seed rates and germination, all that stuff. But really when it comes down to it, and just like Tom said, is there's a lot of bags and stuff out there that they're just kind of hoping to make it look pretty for a cheaper price. But that's not going to fill your void. It's not going to fill your plot. So, you got to take in an aspect. So like, for instance, like wicked greens. We have a lot of grains in there that don't take up a lot of room, but you get something else in there that's a pea that's a crawling plant. It wants to take a little more room. You get more soybean. Like in Hunter's Haven, we have soybeans, we have cowpeas, things that way, or sunflowers. You got to take an aspect. Each plant has so much surface area it wants to take up and grow. I'm a freak about my garden. I go in there, I pick weeds, I do my spacing to a T. There's a reason why they have spacing rates for gardens. It's not because, that just makes it pretty. No, it's because that's what you need to get the best yield. So if you have the right seeding rate, you get the best yield, you get the most bang for your buck when all the deer come to your plot and eat.
So, hey, we're at the point of summer where fall planting is just around the corner. Let's just talk briefly about kind of what you think the priorities are at this point of the game for guys that are going to get out there and start planting. What should planters, and this could be somebody that's planting their very first food plot, or somebody that, has maybe been doing it for a few years? What should they be thinking about at this point?
Yeah, so I mean, if it's someone that's done the routine, I mean, right now we're into spraying season, taking care of your weeds, working ground up where needed, doing no-till perhaps where it is a drought tolerant area where where you have the drought where to save your moisture. Um, but right now we're in that transition point of taking soil samples for the fall. I'm doing field dressing with fertilizer right now to prepare my fall beds so the nutrients is there ready for when I do plant. Um, if it's a new plotter, you're looking at maybe, or a new food plot, you're looking, okay, let's make sure we have the right sunlight. Did we take a pH analysis? Did we figure out how much nutrients we have? Now's the time to make sure the plan is ready so you get your best yield again. So I've seen too many people where they kind of wait and they go, I got months. I mean, I was guilty of that years ago too. But really, planning starts now because we're in about a threshold where we just kind of ended riskly about 2 3 weeks ago here with the last what I would say is soybean planting, and now we're full fledged fall mode. So like right now, I'm spraying all my food plots, getting them all ready. Like I said, getting my fertilizer on there. Obviously, we have a recommendation of the 9-23-30. It's a starter fertilizer. Getting that spread because we really don't want to spread it during planting because you can burn your plants. So we're trying to get the seed bed created. Just like once again, we'll go back to gardening. You don't just throw your plants in and then till and all this stuff. No, you till the bed. You add your your different fertilizers. You add maybe some coal from your fire pit. You add some horse manure. You do all those things to prepare the bed. It's like putting your kids to sleep. You make the bed, you get it ready, pull the covers back, then you put your kids in there so they fall asleep. That's what we're doing right now. So also the food plot design. That's the biggest thing too. I think too many go in there and just go, I have a half acre. I'm just gonna throw something in there and hopefully it grows. We don't want to just hope. We want it to work. So look at it and go, okay, am I trying to make a early season bowl plot? Am I trying to make a late season food source? Am I just using for sheds? Those are the questions you got to be asking to get the seed ordered and ready to rock and roll.
Okay. So you mentioned soil tests. What are you telling guys to do, or what do you do? Do you buy an over the counter? Do you send it into a lab? What do you do, Zach?
Yeah, so I send all my stuff into a lab here in Wisconsin, but I'm testing pH, phosphorus, potassium, and then my nitrogen. So I'm testing all three of those. Nitrogen overall is always going to be pretty status quo, but in like the state of Wisconsin, for instance, just for us, we're always phosphorus and potassium deficient, especially potassium deficient. Now, not saying a food plot won't work if you don't do the test. I like to be prepared. But what happens is if you don't test annually, you'll find out what you're doing. You're going to start stripping that soil of nutrients. You grow a big brassica, you grow a big corn plant, whatever it might be. It pulled nutrients out. The deer consume that. They pull it out. So if you don't do year one, you should be definitely doing it year 2 or 3, sending those samples off and getting it tested.
Good advice. And then you mentioned a little bit earlier about laying out a food plot, the architecture part of it. You kind of feel like that's really important, depending on what you're going to be doing in that plot. If it's just strictly for getting deer to come in so you can shoot a decent buck, or if you're just going to be shed hunting. Could you kind of maybe expound on that a little bit and give us your method behind how you set up a food plot?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is how I always look at. I'm a big bow hunter, so I'm always thinking, all right, I need to have close range. I gotta get a 20-30 yard shot. That's my goal. Obviously, they always double as gun spots usually, but I'm trying to think, okay, where are my deer entering? Where do they want to exit? Where's their bedding? How are thermals playing? I mean, there's a lot of craziness goes in this in this mind. But overall, what I want to do is obviously what's happening on your field edges a lot of times. Usually you have your lowest porous growth because you have shading going on. So a lot of times what I do is I like to do a scrape plot. So I go 10-15 feet wide or right around my whole food plot, or it's say a field edge. And that's pretty much just let the bucks run. Let them run, let them hit some scrape ropes, some scrape vines, check it's purely for them to move and feed. That's it. Now on the other side of that we'll call the scrape plot, that's where I use like what you guys have, the wall, a screening product. I'll build the wall. So now when that buck comes up, that 5-year-old 160, and he goes, all right, I can't see into that 1 acre food plot. What the heck is inside of it? If he comes out and he can see a big, vast, wide open 1 acre plot, he goes, yeah, no does here, and he'll go right back into that woods and leave. He doesn't need to come out and check things. So like I have a 1 acre food plot on my personal property down here in Wisconsin, and I had 7 different food plots in that 1 acre all screened off. So it was an internal maze that a buck had to utilize. He had to come out, from the different predominant winds, and literally I just watch those bucks cruise back and forth, different segments. And it's also neat is now you just took that 1 acre that maybe before had 5 deer during the daylight. Now you might have 20 deer because they don't see each other, they don't realize they're in there. Now you're holding more deer at once and also making that buck work. So I like to use predominant lanes. So like I know if let's say there's a saddle and a food plot, I might make that my lane with wall on each side of it. So that's their travel corridor. Then from there, I make what I'll call gates, where I will actually mow down my wall in a 5 foot stretch. Where there's the gate opening. They'll go in. To me, they're brown goats of the woods, so treat them as such. They're farm animals, so give them a fence, give them gates. They'll use the gate. So that's where I think people have to think is, and also too, like I just did a video a little bit ago on my YouTube channel about stockpiling forage. I want deer to feed in this own a season perennial plot early in this little tiny corner, maybe the wildlife pond, you name it. But I also got to make sure I have enough food for late season. So you might have a 1/4 acre clover plot that's surrounded by a 3/4 acre of rack reaper, wicked greens, whatever it might be. And that way you have those 2 different varieties. And in a way, you're kind of giving them the best bang for their buck. So each food plot is designed different. But I guess what I'm saying in summary is don't go and just throw one thing into a big plot and say, I'm done. Really think about how you want those deer to interact with it.
Oh, I like that. So you're basically, when you're mowing that, the wall down, you're basically making it, a doorway entrance for them. So they're basically just walking from one plot, basically from one room into another.
Yep. And they'll do it mindlessly.
Okay. Yeah. That's a really good idea.
Like I said, food plot architecture.
Nice. Nice. Well, speaking of that, I sent over a map for you to take a look at, and then Steve will put it up so people can see it. This is, it's kind of a smaller property, 20 acres on a ridge, and this is a new piece that a good friend of ours just got access to, and he's going to go in and there's on the 2 plots. I would think one is like 1 acre and the other one is about 3/4 of an acre. So, what I sent it over to you, and what are your thoughts? What do you think for year one? What should he try?
Yeah. So first thing what I would do is find out where the deer are accessing the food plot. That's where you want what I would call a transition plot. I always like to mix a perennial and an annual together. They are the best simultaneous food plots to work together. Have your annual, perennial. You always have food in one. You can work up the bigger area. So let's say the acre. Let's say he has a certain corner that you always want to come in on a south wind. From there you can do a little tiny staging plot that has, let's say, On the Season or Lady Luck, one of the clover blends, and secure that off from the rest of the big area with the wall. So now you have this tiny little core transition plot. That's where your big bucks are going to want to sit. While the rest of the does, the 5-pointers, the spikes, they're all out in the big plot feeding. Put a wildlife pond, all that kind of stuff. But now you have an area that you can pinpoint where they're going to stage up before they enter the big field. Another aspect that we talked about earlier was, too, is making travel corridors throughout plots. So having on each side of the food plots, now always keep wind in mind. That's the biggest thing. First and foremost, always keep your predominant winds in mind. Making actual corridor throughout the whole food plot that, let's say, goes from your south stand that you really like to your north stand you really like. And now you have a corridor of clover, each side being different annual blends. And once again, you're doing that pairing, the annual and the perennial pairing. But once again, you're directing those deer throughout. So, risky, I'd say, as long as he's doing that, keeping the variety. That's the biggest thing. Year 1, I don't care what food plot it is, you need variety. Figure out what your deer like. It's like the one kid that wants the chicken nuggets, and the one kid wants a cheeseburger. You got to figure out what they want to eat. And then once you figure out what they eat, now you can fine tune next year into, I know they need wicked greens because that's what they pounded, but they didn't really touch, let's say, Hunter's Haven. Okay, let's make some switches here. And now you can really fine tune. But year one, clover, annual mixes, making the travel corridors, using the screening to secure off the bigger food plots from the smaller food plots. And once again, funneling those deer throughout those different food plots.
That should work out really good. I'm looking forward to seeing what the results turned out on this piece. You also do a lot of stuff with our friends at Misty Morning Outfitters, and you've got a number of other clients. How are things going with everybody so far this year?
Good overall, except for we're dry. We are super dry. I just actually was just doing some plot scouting this last week, and ground is just very, very, very powdery. So we need rain. But other than that, everything's going very well. Hunter's Haven's up very high, doing well, which is great too, because it's also moisture protection at that point when you have a high food plot, whether it be Hunter's Haven or if you have a clover blend, that's all soil protection. So we try to do a lot of that spring planting in case we have droughts. We try to protect the soil, try to keep it cool. We try to deflect the sun from really stripping that. So that way, when we are doing our fall planting coming up here, we still have moisture in those food plots. So, but no, overall, everything's going good. There's very big deer on the horizon down at Misty Morning in Kansas. So there's gonna be some happy campers there.
Yeah, they have some big deer down there. And then success rate's got to be, I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but all the pictures that they send over, I mean, they run a first class organization right there.
Yeah, and I just got one picture from Matt down there of deer that's scary. That's the best way I can put it. Scary.
Is it one from last year, the big one that he had? Or is it a new one?
It's a different buck. A lot of trash, a lot of beam, a lot of time, a lot of points.
Wow.
But just once in a lifetime, once
Nice.
a 3 lifetime kind of deer.
Nice.
That's awesome. So for somebody like me who maybe missed the window with spring plantings, guilty. How we've got the blends that Rakk Fuel puts out with Own the Season and Lady Luck. Is it too late to plant those at this point? Is it something that we could maybe look at getting those food plot beds ready to go here in the next week or two, and then pop one of those into the ground and expect to at least see something this fall? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and riskfully, the only one I'd say we're really tight on our window would be Hunter's Haven right now. That one we're right at the very, very end of that cycle. But all your clover blends, you're good to go. Every other annual blend, you're good to go. We got time. So right now we're, like I said, we're in that crucial spraying, working ground, all that kind of stuff. The only one I would say hold off on is Hunter's Haven at this point. And then start planning for that one where it can go next year. But everything else, all the other blends, they're good to go still.
Okay. So when you've got a client like Misty Morning down in Kansas and you're doing the planning with them, you're walking them through, kind of what they need to be looking at in order to be successful this fall with the hunters that they bring through their outfit. What are you kind of looking at for that crew, and what are you recommending for them based on? Well, like you said, we're dry, but if we do get some rain, are there specific blends that you're really going to be like, hey guys, let's take a look at this one and see how this does? Is there any one that are sticking out particularly for you?
Yeah, so for down there, so they're pretty much sand. I mean, it's a sandbox down there. So what we've done like down there already is pretty much every food plot right now has what we're calling the cover crop, but that is planted with Hunter's Haven. So right now every food plot is covered. We're protecting our moisture because that's very, very crucial down there. And what now we're going to do is we're actually going to go down, brush mow, crimp, pretty much destroy those food plot plants now to get ready for our fall planting. And what we're really going to go down for there is we're shooting for wicked greens primarily in a lot of the food plots, just because to me it's the bow hunters blend with all the different grains in there. I mean, it's anytime you're putting up oats and peas and winter wheat, winter rye. I mean, you're making something that's critical for bow hunting, and that's the vast majority of a lot of his hunts. But in turn, we also have some blends where he might have a rifle house set up 200 yards away. Now, those ones we're switching gears. We're doing a little bit more like Rakk Reaper and things that way, more of our late season blends into those plots. But there too, we still do our clover in his woods areas, so more secluded areas. We're doing clovers, but the numero uno for them this year is wicked greens. I'd say followed by a little bit of the Rakk Reaper, just because we want a little bit more of the leafy part, because his deer are just crazy hungry down there, because they don't have nothing to eat other than they can eat a cactus or they can have an oat, a pea. So it's a tough one, but yeah. So and then like I said, and then there's secluded areas for just bow hunters. Primarily, we're doing clovers. So like on the season and stuff like that, we'll be top dressing some food plots. We have some really cool designed food plots down there that already have lanes and runways that are all clover that will also be overseeding as well.
Those cactus have any pears on them?
Nope.
Have you ever had them? They're really good.
Yeah, I believe it. They get a
really
lot of plums down there, a lot of wild plum.
When you go down there and you're planting, you're basically just ringing a dinner bell for those animals on that on their properties.
Yeah, and there's some food plots that we plant that we've been hoping to get clover to establish. But when it starts growing, the deer are so crazy that it looks like you retilled the ground. It's wild. Because once again, they have no green. It's brown as it goes. The amount of times I've gone down there even hunting and seen with wildfires and stuff like that, it's so dry. One year we couldn't drive near a food plot because we might start a fire with a four-wheeler. So when there's green, it is, ding, 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 let's go.
That's crazy. All right. So in your opinion, Zach, what's the biggest mistake that people make when they're planting food plots?
Yeah, so really I'd say there's kind of two that go hand in hand. One is planting too deep. That's probably the biggest reason for failure. People plant, they till, they till a foot deep, and then the first rain comes and that seed now is pushed down 2 inches when it wanted to only be an eighth to a quarter inch. So that's a big mistake, is not preparing the bed or over preparing it. Where the seed's not going to have a time. It can maybe germinate, but it's never going to get to sunlight and it'll just rot. The other one I'd say is way overseeding. I always like to talk. I had a friend that gave him food plot seed years ago. It was a half-acre bag. He had a half-acre food plot. And he goes, "Hey, what do you do when you run out in the first pass of seeding?" I'm like, well, that's a thick strip, but we'll have to get you more. So, but overseeding, I mean, especially when you go turnip radish blends, it does feel like you are barely putting anything down, but that's a reason. You have something like this. You don't want something like this. So they overseed. Now you're uptaking all that nutrients. You're pretty much starving your food plot before it took off. So those two to me go hand in hand. Planting too deep and way overseeding, going, just throw another bag on it. We'll be fine. I did that year one, and I had a miniature plot. I mean, lawn gnomes would have looked great in it. I mean, let's put it that way. But
So you're basically just, I mean, the mass that's growing under the ground it's just crowded when you overseed.
Yeah.
Or when you put too much 100%. Seed in the ground.
Correct. So that's why, like when, on all your guys' jugs, when it's saying quarter acre, it's not saying an acre. It's not saying this, that. Follow that recommendation. Now I'd say, like, when you have certain blends, like let's say Wicked Greens has more grains on it. There's a little more room for error. So if you feel like you're one of those guys that overseeds, there's more room for error in there than, let's say, the two different turnip blends. There's no room for error there. We'd rather go a little lighter to get a bigger leaf plan, bigger bulb. So if you're one of the guys that's worried about overseeding, I'd say go more on Wicked Green side, a grains blend. There's more room for error there.
I got buddies that, they talk about getting ready to plant their brassica blends year after year after year. With a farmer, they're rotating their crops. Should food plot guys be doing the same thing? Instead of trying to do the same thing each time, rotate it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, and when I first started, it's like my dad was a big gardener, I am too. So like when you go brassica species, cabbage species, things that way, you can get what's called a cabbage rootworm, which once it's there, you're done. You're gonna have a destroyed food plot year after year. So you want to rotate out, and it's really about disease prevention than anything, and also kind of taking care of your soil too. Some years you want to get some stuff that gives a little bit more nitrogen back in the soil and take it out. You might want to rotate one year. Let's say you had a really bad weed year this year, and a lot of people will because it's a drought. And that's you're like, I really just can't battle all this foxtail, witch's broom, all this stuff. Plant a grains blend because now your winter wheat, your winter rye, what they'll do is they have a natural process called allelopathy that puts enzymes into the soil and naturally kills weeds. It suppresses weeds naturally. So if you're one of those guys that has weed issue, or let's say you're like, next year I want this to be a beautiful clover plot. All right, now this year, let's do turnips. Let's aerate that soil naturally. Let's take that bottom half, the ball of nutrients, put it back in soil. And now, let's say next March, we're going to go and we're going to frost seed. I'm never tilling that ground again. We have clover come up. So I'm constantly changing. Now, the only time I really don't rotate much would be when I'm doing my clovers. I'm shooting for 3 to 5 years on a lot of my perennials. But when I'm doing annuals, and we go back to food plot architecture, I have one food plot this year that I'm doing. It's 3/4 acres, Hunter's Haven, and I've redesigned how I want that to lay out. Now I'm going to hunt over that this year and go, all right, how are my deer moving through it? And this is an ongoing process from the last 3 years I've watched on this food plot and going, they're not quite taking that edge I'd want them to. I'm going to cut and change that. I'm going to change that plot. So I'm constantly taking this blend, pulling it here, putting this blend here. So to me, that's more of my rotation. But overall, it's good soil health, good disease prevention, to constantly changing up your plant species in your food plots.
Now, what about, a screening product like the wall? Do you do the same thing? Do you shift where you put your wall, so you're not planting, that year after year in the same areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some areas where, once again, I'm changing my design every year, but there's some spots I've done the wall for years. I have a screen in the same exact place. The only thing is now you got to know is the wall, any screening blend is much like corn. It wants its nitrogen. It wants to pull soil out. It wants to obviously turn into that 15-foot tall plant. Now, as you take that off, you just stripped all that. So the biggest thing is I'm not as worried about planting the same spot as much as make sure you have the nutrient base for the following year. Or what you'll find is you'll mine your soil to the point where you have 3-foot tall screening, not the 15-foot tall. So that's more important with screening products.
Right.
Makes sense. So you kind of enlightened us what you're doing down in Kansas. What's going to be your go-to blend this year on your property? Is there one that might be your favorite, like a front runner?
Yeah, I mean, other than obviously our little test blend out there, I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be Wicked Greens. I'm very, very excited about that one. For years, I have mixed certain seed blends to make a blend such as Wicked Greens, and the amount of deer traffic I've always had has been phenomenal. So I have a couple of my more prone areas that have better bucks that are me planting with that on both my Wisconsin properties, but that's going to be my go-to this year. I'm pretty excited to get that back in the ground.
Well, now we're going to sell out because you just said that. All right, Zach, man, this has been great. A lot of really good information. Is there anything that you think we're missing, or is there anything that you have, Tom, that maybe we should ask, didn't ask, or?
No, I mean, overall, the biggest, thing is have fun with it. For everyone that's in a food plot, don't read too much into what people put on social media and everything that way. Do your own research. that's how we made these blends. It's not just from, hey, let's put something together and have, and just see if it works. No, it's been years and years of, you're like this, you're like that. That one works great in this situation, and mixing them. And honestly, it's about having fun, taking time. Yeah, you might screw up this year, learn from mistakes, and make it better next year. But I'd say the biggest thing for everyone, this year is get variety, get the variety. That'll be your most important thing on your properties is doing that, because now you'll understand your herd better. You'll understand what they want better for 2023. And if you're a nerd like me, I'll sit in my gun stand and draw my plan as I'm looking for the food plot for the following year. So always be planning ahead.
Love it.
Do you have so for this year, what do you have planned? Did you draw any tags anywhere this year?
So I stumbled into a lease down in Kentucky, a 3,500 acre lease. So
Really?
that's my big adventure.
Wow.
So actually through yeah. So we'll see. The southern borders, Tennessee. I haven't been there yet. I've had the lease for a year, so I'm gonna have a little legwork there. But Kansas will be next year. I go every other year down there. But
Okay.
and then I got a long wait for Iowa, sadly. So on that track.
Did you just buy your first point then this
Yep.
year?
Yep, got my first point. So I got a good 4 or 5 years ahead of me.
Jeez,
So
it's crazy how long. There was a lot of guys that had 4 points that didn't draw for bow tag.
it's unreal.
Yeah, it is crazy. That's crazy.
But no, other than that, my biggest thing is in December I'll be going buffalo hunting. So that'll be food plot aside, that'll be one of my bucket list hunts getting done. But we'll see how the Kentucky thing works first. I don't think my wife's a fan since she's a teacher and that's her first week back to school, and I'm taking a week off to go kill a deer. So
are you going for a velvet buck then?
I'm gonna try. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
When is the opener this year? Is it
Labor Day weekend? So it's like the 3rd, I think. But
nice.
Last time I was down in Kentucky, it was 97 degrees and I was in a ground blind. So, yeah.
Oh. And if anyone has any questions on any of these blends that we're talking about, if you go on our website and you click on the food plots, it has each blend. And I know some of the other bags, if you turn it over on the back, the small print is tiny because they don't almost want you to know what's in there. We've got everything listed, what's in each blend. And if you have questions, if you just, you just send an email. If I don't know the answer, I can talk to Zach or, a couple of the other agronomists, and we can get the information to you. So, Tom at rackfuel.com, any questions, whether it's food plots or mineral or feed, the attractants, anything that we sell, anything that we can do to help, our customers and other hunters out there be successful, we're definitely going to try to do. So, reach out, you send a message through our Facebook page, and then, Zach, you should give everybody kind of where they can find you on your pages and on social media where you're available too.
Yeah. So I got my business pages on Facebook, Creek Bottom Land Management. Also, then I have my website too with some information, Creek Bottom Land, mgmt.com. But either place I can be reached. I'm pretty frequent on different groups and things that way, so you'll see my name pop up from time to time. But
awesome, man. Well, I know for Tom and I, man, we appreciate all the input that you gave us on our blends.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just feel incredibly blessed that you are a part of that. Like you said, your experience, you've actually seen how these blends work. You see, what works, what doesn't, and how deer, kind of interact with that food source. And, I think we're super excited just to see how people like the blends and how successful they can be with them. So, we really appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to where we can go with it all, and look forward to seeing some giant bucks dead in the plots. That's for sure.
Yeah, us too. All right. So this is the part of the show we call the lightning round. We ask you some rapid fire questions. We just want you to answer them just off the top of your head, whatever you say. And then, And we might ask you why you answered a certain way, but hopefully you'll have a little fun with this. So, all right, here we go. Question number 1, gun or bow?
Close, man. I like being up and close. I think it's the challenge aspect, and I love knowing that there's a little more room or error on that. But the bow is just so traditional, and it's so much more peace and quiet and closer to God, and I just love everything about archery.
All right, question 2, favorite tree stand snack?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. But I'm probably gonna have to go with actually they're called pecan sandy cookies. They melt in your mouth, and it's just been good. I don't know. My dad always had them, and I always have them. So most people hate them. They think they taste like sand, but hey, pecan sandies, I love them.
Where the heck do you even get that?
Oh, from every store, Tom. Come on, man.
What?
I've never heard of it either.
Every grocery store should have it. But,
I know. I'm like,
oh, so now you're gonna have to try.
I like pecans. I'm thinking, okay.
See, we're collecting information so we know what to bring with us next time, Zach. All right. Zach, question 3, your favorite state to hunt?
I gotta say Iowa. It's it's crazy. That's the only way to put it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. And then finally, in your opinion, what's the most important factor in killing a mature whitetail?
I'd say patience. The most important factor is patience. Knowing when to go in, knowing when to stay out, knowing the way to pick the right days to hunt and not just force it on them. I think, patience hands down.
Great answers, man. Nice job. And of course, we got to mention, Zach's got some pretty cool apparel. He's got the cool creek bottom hats. Let's see that shirt you got on there. Get that up in the camera. Nice.
Yeah, that's now you gotta watch out. Some people think it says the other thing, but it doesn't.
Where can folks get your apparel, Zach?
Yeah, so right on my website, Creek Bottom Land Management, so creekbottomlandmgmt.com. But yeah, I've got the new hats in, got koozies, shirts, and then actually my guest graphic designer right now, he's working on a couple different shirts, a couple funny food plot related t-shirt designs. So that's going to be coming up here pretty soon.
Again, thanks for all your hard work on the food plot blends. We appreciate it. And yeah, man, we're looking forward to seeing some guys drop the hammer down on over some of these plots this fall.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Zach, a lot.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me part of this. It's been a fun journey so far.
Thanks for joining us on the Rakk Factor podcast, presented by Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Nutrition. Listeners of the podcast can enjoy 20% off Rakk Fuel Premium Deer Mineral, Feed, or Food Plot Seed by entering the code FACTOR, that's FACTOR, at checkout. Visit rackfuel.com now for 20% off premium deer nutrition products and fuel your herd. Hey guys, to celebrate the launch of our podcast, we are having a review giveaway. So if you found value in our conversation today, please share and write a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This really helps us get found by others in the hunting community. So write a review, take a screenshot, and email it to steve@rackfuel.com. We will pick one winner to receive a Rakk Fuel prize package as a thank you. Good luck.